Good morning. Today is Thursday, November 30th, 2023. At the beginning of our Torah portion, Vayishlach, Yaakov and his family are making preparations for this reunion with Yaakov's brother Eisav. They had not seen each other for many years and they had left on very bad terms. And so it was extremely unclear and frightening what was going to happen. So there were all kinds of preparations that took place. And then there's a passage near the beginning of our Parsha. The Torah says, Vayakam balayla, Yaakov woke up at night, I guess in the middle of the night, V'yikach eshtei nashav ves shtei shivchosav. He took his 4 wives, ves achad asar yiladav, and his 11 children. At that time he had 11 children. Vayavor es mavar yabok, and he crossed the Yabok River. Vayikachem vayavirem es hanachal. He took them, ferried them across this river to the other side of the river. Vayaver es asher lo, and he also crossed over, carried over his possessions. Vayivaser Yaakov levado, and at a certain point Yaakov was left on one side of the river alone, meaning his family and his possessions were on the other side, but he was on the side by himself. Vayeavek ish imo, and a man wrestled with him ad alosai shachar, until the morning dawn. This passage is very, very cryptic. It's very mysterious. What is this Mavar Yabok? There is still a place today in Israel. Not in Israel, it's in Jordan. Just over the Jordan River in northwestern Jordan called the Yabok River. Mavar Yabok. It's a place. I can't tell you if it's the same one as this. Could be. There's so much discussion about this, especially among our Kabbalistic scholars, that this river is somehow the river between life and death, between one realm and another realm. All kinds of metaphoric and symbolic discussions of crossing this river. And then what's the story with this wrestling? Who is this Ish, this man? Who is he wrestling with? Why were they wrestling? Some commentators explain that it was an angel representing Eisav. What does that mean? Why did they wrestle until the dawn? I mean, it's just one question on top of another, completely difficult to understand, with lots of esoteric commentary. But let's just start with a simple question. So Yaakov was wrestling with someone. And it happened at a time that Yaakov was alone. So how did it happen that Yaakov was alone? I mean, he had a big family. How was it possible that Yaakov could have had a moment when he was alone so that this wrestling took place? So the answer to that is simple, because Yaakov was putting into practice the plan that he had mentioned to his family. Because part of the plan of preparing to meet Eisav, they did not know if it would be friend or foe. And so Yaakov decided he would take everything he had and divide it into two groups. His family and his possessions on one side, maybe his flocks and other things on the other side. so that if, God forbid, there was an attack on one, the other would be able to escape. Okay, it's a defensive military tactic. All right. So, what was happening during this night is Yaakov, and I guess his family was helping, was moving their stuff from one side of the river to the other. So, if you're moving, so if you have to cross the river, I guess you have a ferry boat. So, you take your stuff, you load up the boat, you drop it off, and you go back for another load. And you keep going back for another load until you've taken everything over. And at a certain point, everything had crossed over. The only thing that was left, Rashi says, Shenishtayer al pachim ktanim. The last load was not a full load. It was just a few utensils, a few clay jugs. So Yaakov didn't need any help to bring that over. He went for one last load, and it would be an easy last load, just a few little utensils, and then he would be finished with his job. So that's why he was alone, because he was picking up these last utensils, and that's when this wrestling happened. Pachim ktanim, shenishtayer al pachim ktanim. Pachim ktanim means little utensils, cheap utensils, little jugs, little bottles, little utensils. But here's the question. Yaakov was a wealthy man. He had servants, he had possessions, he had sheep and cattle. He was a wealthy man. Why would he go back one last time for just a little cheap stuff? I mean, if you're moving out of your house, so you move everything, you have load after load after load. And then the final load, there are a couple little pieces of stuff on the floor. You need 2 more paper napkins that are left on the floor. You need whatever it is, half a roll of tape. Let it be. It's worthless. It's insignificant. Why did Yaakov go back for what was insignificant? So I want to share with you the answer that's given by the Yakar, one of the classic commentators to the Torah. In last week's Torah portion, we learned about Yaakov's work on behalf of his father-in-law Lavan in growing Lavan's flocks, and he took a portion for himself. And we learned, and we've discussed this before, that Yaakov's actions are the textbook example of business ethics, of how an employee should work for an employer. That he worked day and night. He made sure that any loss was his, not his employer's, his father-in-law. He worked with such diligence that literally the Rambam Maimonides, in his commentary, where he writes about the laws of the relationship between an employer and an employee, uses Yaakov as an example of the ideal employee in terms of the care that he gave to his employer. Because Yaakov was so careful about honesty in his work, there was a holiness in every object that he had honestly earned. He earned it honestly, in accordance with God's laws. That makes it holy. Yes, it's inexpensive. But Yaakov felt there was a great value even in these little utensils because he had earned them honestly. And so he went back for it because it was important to him. Even though the value was low, but the significance was high because he earned it honestly. It's an important idea. We should have pride in what we have earned honestly. A related story told about the Chavetz Chaim, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan of Radin. He had once borrowed money from someone, and the time came for him to pay back the debt. So he told his son, I'm going on an errand. I want you to come with me. It was the middle of the week, obviously. I want you to put on your Shabbos clothes. And the Chavetz Chaim put on his Shabbos clothes. Now, let me just explain. Today, if we say Shabbos clothes, we might mean for a man a suit and a tie. For the Chavetz Chaim, who lived with such poverty, to wear his Shabbos clothes more than once a week, it was a big deal. But he put on his Shabbos clothes, and he had his son put on his Shabbos clothes, and said, we're going on an errand. And he and his son went walking and went walking. Finally, they came to a house, and he knocked on the door, and he said to his son, watch what's going to happen now, because I am now going to fulfill one of the most important mitzvos in the Torah. Watch what I do. And the man answers, and the Chavetz Chaim says to him, I have come to repay my debt. Here is the money. I have fulfilled the mitzvah of repaying my debt on time. Decades later, his son told this story, and the impression it made on him, the rigor that the Chavetz Chaim had in honesty in his business dealings, and to pay back a debt on time, that's a mitzvah. It's got to be treated as an important act. And Yaakov felt the same way about every object that he had earned honestly. But let's go deeper. The Talmud says something that is hard to understand. Vayivaser Yaakov levado. The pasuk says Yaakov was left alone. Again, he went back for these utensils. Rabbi Elazar teaches Shenishtayer al pachim ktanim. He went back for these insignificant little utensils. Mikan, from here you learn, letzadikim, that for righteous people, shechaviv alehem mamonam yoser migufam, that their money is more important to them than their lives. Now, that doesn't make any sense. It goes against everything that we know about Jewish law, the values of the Torah. A person would certainly not allowed to put themselves in danger for money. What in the world is the Talmud saying? It's an exaggeration. It's an exaggeration. The Talmud means to say that righteous people are very careful about the objects that they own. Okay. I mean, it can't mean it literally, so it's an exaggeration. But what does it mean? Yaakov was a wealthy man. He did not need these insignificant utensils. He would not have gone back for them had he known that he would be in danger. Because of course, no one is allowed to put themselves in danger for monetary objects. Safety comes first. Health comes first. Life comes first. We've been discussing that so many times. He didn't know he was going to be in danger, but he was willing to expend energy and inconvenience, though he clearly could have afforded to leave them. Why? Listen to the answer that the Yakar gives, and Reb Shamshon Hirsch, and a number of other commentaries. Yaakov realized that everything that he had, every object that he had, was matnas Hashem, a gift from God. Wasting something, even if its monetary value is insignificant, wasting something is wrong, not just because maybe you can't afford to waste. Wasting something is wrong, not just because somebody else could use it. Wasting something is wrong, even if it's monetarily insignificant. It is wrong because if you have something, even the smallest thing, you only have it because God gave it to you. And to waste it is to lack appreciation for a gift that God has given you. Matnas Hashem, a gift from God. Imagine you receive a gift from someone that you love and someone who loves you. It's going to be important to you even if the object is insignificant. But what it means to you, because of the one who gave it to you, that's what gives it its value. And when we realize that everything we have is a gift from God, not just our possessions, but our health, our family, our friends, the simcha, the joy that we have in life, when we realize all of it is a gift from God, we will have then taken the first step to appreciating it and not taking it for granted. Yaakov is our model for not taking anything in life for granted, because Yaakov realized everything he had was a gift from God. My friends, I wish you a good day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.